Welcome to Pario Magazine, where I chat with individuals who have a desire to create. Today, I'm joined by a man with two different but complementary creative passions. On one side, he is the current reigning and defending FWA heavyweight champion, while on the other side, he is a digital marketing executive. Welcome to Pario Magazine, the bad guy, Vinnie Vain.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
My pleasure. So we're here today to chat about your journey blending the worlds of digital marketing and pro wrestling. But
Yeah.
before we dive into that, do you want to give our audience a brief intro as to who Vinny is away from work and the creative endeavors?
Who Vinny is away from work. So do you want the character me or the real world me?
Just what is real world you like before we dive into the character and work stuff?
Yeah, real world's really simple. I'm very much your average guy. I'm 35. I'm a father. I live a very, as you could imagine, with a dad. Being a dad, I'm very busy with kid stuff and kids activities. Very family orientated. And then pretty much I work solid, man. As you mentioned, I work in marketing. I'm a digital marketing expert, and I spend a lot of my time doing that. I also do some, I like do a lot of freelance jobs for friends that, because I'm very ingrained in marketing. I love marketing. I love digital marketing. So that takes up most of my time. And then besides that, man, I'm just trying to, get my 2 liters of water, trying to get my 10,000 steps and trying to, be a good, son, brother, friend, cousin, like everyone else, man, just running the rat race that is 2023.
Yeah, there's a lot to sort of keep balanced these days.
I can't balance any of it at all, mate. I completely suck. But it's just a juggling act. You do the best you can with the 24 hours you've got.
Yep. So as we mentioned, you have those two sides to your creativity. Which came first, the wrestling passion or the marketing interest?
Oh, that's a really good question because is it the chicken or the egg? So I was obviously interested in pro wrestling as a teenager. But I never did anything about it. I was just a fan that used to watch wrestling on TV like every other kid in the 2000s. And I finished high school and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go down the marketing route. I was actually doing a double degree at the time. I was doing a law degree and a marketing degree. But it got to the point in my life where I loved law. I was very good at law, believe it or not. But I will be honest with you, it was all up. It was about a 5 year worth of study commitment, and I got to about the 3 year mark, and I'm like, I can't do another 2.5 years of this. And I had achieved more. I completed more marketing results, more marketing subjects, and I had a lot more law to go. And I was like, look, I just want to finish my marketing degree. I really wanted to get into the workforce full time. I was working pretty much full time during my studies. Just retail. I used to work for a company called a boxing label called Lonsdale, and I was doing full time hours there, running around the country for them, doing a variety of different tasks. But I wanted to get out of study, so I completed my marketing degree and got right into the workforce as a marketing executive and then a brand marketing manager for that brand Lonsdale, and then it's just gone from there. And then once I had done that and established my career in marketing, that's when I decided to have a shot at the pro wrestling world. And I was tossing up between mixed martial arts and pro wrestling because I grew up doing karate competitively at an international level. I had traveled to Japan. I had represented Australia. I had won numerous state national titles, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll go down the MMA route. This was about 24 at the time, 25. But somebody said, just give pro wrestling a shot. Let's just see how that goes. And then I got into that and I went through the training and started doing some shows. And man, the rest is history. Like literally the last, better part of a decade has just been balancing both marketing and pro wrestling. So I really couldn't tell you which one came first. We just happen to land here at the same time now where we are at this point in the time continuum.
Yeah, I guess it's good to sort of have that solid foundation before you get into the crazy world of wrestling where there's probably not as much money in as people think.
Look, I've probably been very vocal about this, and maybe it has been to my detriment. To be completely honest with you, I was always adamant on setting myself up financially and having something to fall back on because I admire the ladies and gentlemen on the scene now that are making it their life. There's a lot of young kids coming through that's like, when we got out of uni, or sorry, when we got out of school in my time, it's like, what are you going to do with your life? It was never an option to be like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Like, I come from my parents are Greek Lebanese. That doesn't exist, man. That doesn't fly in our culture. It's like, you're going to go and make something of yourself for real. So I obviously wanted to set myself up, with a solid career and a solid background. So with pro wrestling was never part of the plan. I just kind of fell into it, but I'm glad I did it the way I've done it because, this isn't to discredit anyone at all, but you're taking a shot at Hollywood. It's a very long shot, and if you make it, wow, more power to you. But for the majority of performers, and this isn't just in Australia, this is in the world, when you look at the number of pro wrestlers there are in the world and the numbers that make it, it's a very, very, a long shot. So you want to have something to fall back on. I never wanted to be that guy where I'm at the age I am now and, oh, I didn't make it as a pro wrestler, so now I've got to try and build my life up when everyone else is 15 years ahead of you. It's just not the life I wanted to lead. And I'm not sorry for that. It doesn't mean I was any less committed or determined to make it as a pro wrestler. I just, financial security was important to me, and I'm not sorry for that at all.
Yeah, I guess like you look at it on the global scale, it's a very long shot, but then in Australia, it's even worse. There's maybe 6 people currently living overseas doing this full time.
If that. And look, those people that you're referring to, man, like the ones I know of that I've met a few times, like I know how much effort they've put in and the sacrifices they've made to get there. And they deserve all of that success and more. And they're a great representation of Australia. If anything, those guys have helped put Australia and women, they've helped put Australia on the map in that sense. I honestly feel sometimes when I say I miss the train, you're so lucky now if you are breaking into this business now, because of people like that who have done the hard yards, because there's so many eyes on the product now and there's so many, people looking at it and talking about Australia. Whereas when I started, pro wrestling was a ring in some small little RSL venue that attracted 200 or 300. Actually, it attracted big numbers. More like for what it was. Like given some of the shows I've competed on now, when I started out, the crowds were a lot bigger. But there was less companies in the market at that time. But I think it's a lot easier now for a lot of the people starting out to get that exposure because of the work a lot of the people that are overseas at the moment have put in. So we all owe them a big thank you in some regard.
So then on your marketing side, what does a typical day look like for you, or a day or week?
A day or week, man. It's crazy. It could like, so, typical day, you wake up to, dare I say, no less than 150 emails that you got to get through. And this is all before 8 a.m. Obviously you got to get the kid organized before the day starts. So that's another thing, another thing on the list to do. And then it's emails, meetings, am I flying somewhere today? Do I have to be in Melbourne or Brisbane or Newcastle or wherever I've got to go? I am on the road sometimes, conferences and creative sessions and this, that, and the other thing. It's executive life. Like you can understand how that goes. There's a lot, obviously I'm talking in my free time now, but it's suits and ties and slacks and shoes and, hair done. It's a full on thing. And you're managing all that, and you're managing a variety of different stakeholders, all with a variety of different problems. I'm a national digital marketing manager, so that means I've got a lot of local teams managing certain things on the assets that are in our portfolio, so to speak. So I've got to deal with all their problems. Now I've got to deal with the big ticket items I'm working on to advance the business. And then, as you could imagine, being in digital marketing, social media is a big part of that. We have constant changes with Facebook and Instagram, whether it be, algorithms or content types or metrics that it reports on. All these things change on a given day, and you are constantly putting out fires. I love it. I wouldn't put it any other way. And then to stay ahead of the game and to stay sharp, you're constantly researching and exploring what are other brands doing, what's latest in the market. And I get very inspired by like brand campaigns and what other brands are doing and how they're executing their efforts digitally. It's amazing what's going on in the market now. Like everything from 3D billboards to, even as basic as QR codes and some of the data you can get off those, and the insights that come from that. I think one of the beautiful things about digital marketing is not just connecting things, it's what's the customer behavior and the actions behind certain things they're doing. If you can analyze these and get those insights, you can build out better campaigns and suit or meet the needs of your customers at the place and time they need to be met. That's the beautiful thing about marketing. It's a beautiful science. I love it. I love it more than anything.
Particularly, I guess, digital marketing, there's like endless creative options compared to, say, like print media advertising, like a newspaper campaign. It's very, this is the ad and that's it. Whereas digital, you've got video, audio, whatever you want.
Well, yes, not yes, 100%. When you look at the old formats of marketing, it was exactly as you said. It was a billboard, and if you're measuring results, your key metric was this is how many people saw your billboard on this given street, based on the traffic numbers and whatnot. But now with digital, you can do so much more. You can put it on you can put it in any platform, Facebook, Instagram, Google websites, screen networks, even the billboards now are digital in some regards. Slap a QR code on it and you can understand exactly where that traffic came from. If you've labeled the QR code correctly, you UTM the URL. Sorry if I'm talking jargon you don't understand, but there's a lot of tracking involved. So we can tell who's viewed what and where. And then again, this gives us better insights. And as marketers, we can look at what is working. So when we've got a media budget, so to speak, we can learn from these things and optimize. So we're not, we're getting most bang for our buck. We're not wasting money in places where the media is not working or driving a return for us. That's some of the beautiful things with digital, where to your point with old school print media, you put it out there, you hope for the best. You don't, the bottom line, the success is, did sales increase or whatever you're trying to achieve. But with digital, you can refine things so much more and learn so much more from your audience that it opens you up to, new markets. If you're a good analyst and you can look at the insights and find common threads in there, you're ahead of the game. It's awesome.
And then over the years, what have been some of your favorite campaigns or campaigns you're particularly proud of?
My own work?
Yep.
Oh man, over the years, plenty. Like I've I can go back as far as 10 years. If you look up, it's not around anymore. The brand is was bought out by its parent company. But when Lonsdale was in Australia, back in the day, we did a campaign called Real Fighters, and this was where I was working on this with the creative agency was called Bashful, where it was we got the top sports stars at the time, and this is how far back we go. But like Billy Dibb, who was a former world boxing champion, Dane Swan, who's a legendary AFL player, Todd Carney and Paul Gallen at the time were top New South Wales reps in rugby league. Lauren Eagle was another pro boxer, fitness model. Candice Falzon, who is now Candice Warner, she's married to the cricketing guy. She was an Iron Woman at the time. So we combined all these athletes together and came up with this concept called Real Fighters, which was really cool. And what the brand stand for at the time, it was edgy, it was gritty, it was about people overcoming their obstacles to be the best version they could be. This was a cool campaign that we led nationally across all our, our stores. And it did gangbusters, man. It got a lot of media attention. Danny Weidler picked it up. A lot of different people picked it up. That was super cool. And the way we integrated that in store across a lot of things and through our products, it was like a badge of honor to wear Lonsdale products at the time. Now I'm talking over 10 years ago, but it was a cool thing. I was very proud of that. And then I moved into shopping center marketing for a while, and we've done a ton of campaigns that won a lot of different awards, everything from, Father's Day campaigns and Mother's Day campaigns and Christmas campaigns. So many good things, across the companies I've worked for in shopping center world. I've won a lot of awards across the Shopping Center Council of Australia for a lot of different marketing campaigns and whatnot in that space. So, which was really cool. But yeah, a lot of good work I'm proud of. But even just seeing the evolution of the companies that I've worked for improve their digital footprint over the years by implementing, modern methods and whatnot. It's fantastic. It's like watching your child grow. It's so cool. Like, I know for some people this is probably boring, but like I said, it's a very sweet science. And if you get it right, it's amazing, because I've even been able to take those things and apply it to my own brand with wrestling. Like, I've been able to, if you look up, like, no discredit to anyone, but you look at my my digital presence, digital, not social. I'm not talking about the number of followers and stuff, but I mean, like, you look up Vinnie Vain. He's got a website. He's got all his socials intact, his call to actions, and all that. Even how I do my media and my promos, you would have seen I've done Piers Austin and I have a thing going that we're working on together across, many different feds and different storylines and angles. And the way we do our promos isn't necessarily talk down the barrel, like this Saturday at this, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Like, we take a different creative approach to it, and it's all part of a bigger marketing strategy. Not anyone, but you can stand in front of a camera and talk all day. And it's not a matter of people will look at these promos from other wrestlers, say that was good, that was bad, or that's indifferent. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you're just talking down a camera. I believe by doing the promos we do, given we've got a bit more of a strategic direction and we're trying to market ourselves differently, they're more engaging. People want to watch this and say, hey, what's that about? And it's if you've noticed and you've paid attention to what we've been doing, since day one, everything Piers and I have done on camera is part of a bigger narrative. Like a TV show, the story goes on and seasons happen and the story pivots. We've done the same thing. We're not just here to do a promo down the barrel and say, at X promotion on this date, I'm going to wrestle this person and I'm going to do this. No one cares. There's no value in that. If wrestlers get a little bit more creative with what they're doing and start to think, how can I convey the same message in a more creative style or narrative or format, the engagement numbers will go up. And then hopefully the promotions you're working for, their ticket sales go up or their fight pay-per-view buys go up. That's the end goal. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, I was chatting to Piers about that recently at the Rock and Roll Wrestling show, about how you guys are sort of creating those stories across promotions and across shows when not a lot of people are doing that because we don't have like a weekly TV show in Australian wrestling. You might get a show a month and it's hard to carry a story across those big gaps.
It is. And I think as well, the one thing that Piers and I have done is Piers and I, not like where Piers and I are involved in a variety of different storylines across different feds, but the Piers and Vinnie angle is purely it's not tied to anyone specifically. This is our gimmick and this is what we do. And we create content based off the dynamic between an agent and his star client, and all the trials and tribulations that come between. It doesn't have to be tied to the wrestling. The wrestling is a byproduct of that. We're trying to sell entertainment. We're trying to sell a narrative. We're trying to sell interest in the characters. So then the promotions that we work for or have an interest in working with us can see that value and bring customers to their shows because they want to see these characters and they want to see these narratives and they want to see how the story plays out. Growing up as a wrestling fan, I can tell you now personally, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with this or have some level of understanding, is when sometimes you wouldn't care about the match itself and the technicalities of what went on in that match. No one cares. They cared about the pre-hype reel and the story that led to this match. That's where the beauty was. What happened in the match, no one cares. You might remember who won or lost, but you wouldn't be able to remember every single working aspect of that match. The shine, the heat, the comeback, whatever. Like, it's that build up, that emotion that makes you want to see that. And that's what I remember with certain pay-per-views when I was growing up as a kid. And you'd watch like WrestleMania 20. You watch the vignette they put together before the main event match, and you're like, oh my god, I'm so G'd. Like, sometimes that was more interesting than the actual match. So that was something that's really cool, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to bring a different level of entertainment and present our story and our characters in a different light. The wrestling will speak for itself. The wrestling in ring and what happens, in my opinion, is extremely subjective. I don't believe there's a right or wrong. I've done matches where I've read reviews that have been sent to me where someone has given it the ultimate praise and been like, that was awesome. It was well constructed. The psychology was on point. The execution was relatively good. And then I've had people who've reviewed the same match and said, oh, there wasn't much to love about this. It's like a food critic. That's their opinion. It's what suits their taste. That is how it is. So I really couldn't care less about what someone thinks of my in-ring work. I'm my own worst critic. you couldn't say anything like that I don't already know. But I do believe in giving a different source of entertainment and narrative to those matches to make people want to be invested in that. So they want to come and see the outcome of a given match that I'm involved in.
Yeah, I think like looking back, growing up watching wrestling, I think you look at someone like Stone Cold, who was probably the biggest wrestling star of the 90s and 2000s. And his was all story. His matches didn't really have big, crazy moments. You might be one or two things that you remember from matches, but a lot of the time it was the story with Vince that was the big thing carrying his whole career.
Exactly. You could even go as far as to say some of his matches were very boring. I've seen, like, from what I've seen, I remember someone like, oh, this is boring. Like, that's not to discredit his work or anything at all. Like, who am I to compare it? Like Stone Cold's work? The guy is a legend of the game. But that's exactly the point. Sometimes the narrative is so much more engaging than the actual, technicalities of a given match.
And even today on the indies, we see people like Matt Cardona and Steph DeLanda, who are like the biggest thing in the US, and their matches are just WWE solid basic matches compared to they might have like a Vikingo or somebody in a match straight after them doing crazy high spots. And
Yeah.
the Cardona match is the one that gets all the talk.
But they're the smartest people because, like, you got to remember something. Like, you have, in most cases, for most wrestlers, you have a lifespan because no one really wants, unless you're like a Ric Flair, no one wants to see a 50-plus-year-old guy, his wrinkles and his body out, in the ring, and your body can't take it. Like, you got to remember, what's your quality of life worth after wrestling? So it's very important that you factor these things in. So guys like Matt Cardona, why go and take unnecessary bumps? Why do all that when you can do so much less and get the same reaction? If not a bigger reaction than, in your point, like the Vikingo or something like that, who's amazing and could do stuff I could only dream about. But who's going to have the longevity in their career and what's going to make more money? Because I'm speculating here, right? But like Cardona can do this for the next 20 years and make a lot of money doing it. Whereas the higher the risk you take as a performer, sometimes if that goes sour, you're on the shelf. And this isn't like a corporate job where you can take sick days and, oh yeah, I can still be paid, by sitting at home. Unless you're signed to a major league promotion, and you're working the indies, that's no money in your pocket. So, I think brain wise, sometimes like you guys like Cardona and that, they're smart, man. They've got to figure it out and they'll make a good living out of this and they'll do it and keep their body intact for the better part of their life.
And then with your sort of blending your two sides, the marketing and the wrestling, I imagine those two work very hand in hand. How are you making those work to make your wrestling career better?
Well, like I was saying, given that you have like I've got a marketing background, I'm able to create a persona. I've been able to create, the bad guy Vinnie Vain. I know some people are like, oh, the bad guy, like that's fine. I don't really, people can say, oh, it's a ripoff or whatever they want to say. But like you look at boxing, everyone's called Sugar, or Money or something, it's just a nickname. It's a monkey. It's not a big deal. I've been able to take that, create a persona. And I've had this conversation with a lot of promoters where they're like, the one thing we love about you is when you walk out in front of a new audience, irrelevant of whether they know who you are, like if they haven't seen you before, they already know that this guy is the heel. You know what I mean? You've got that look, that demeanor, your outfit, the expression on your face. They already know that, this guy's a dick. We're going to boo him, and it works to my favor. I've been able to create that persona purely through marketing, and I've been able to take some of those learnings. And like I was saying before, I've looked at it strategically from a strategic marketing standpoint. I've been able to create content around that is different to everyone else on the scene, on the indies here that are just doing promos that are straight to barrel and, like, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to you. Like, no, we're creating something different, and it's all from a strategic marketing standpoint. Even the way I position some of the content on my socials, it's done strategically. I do content differently to other people. I clip things and I create things different that I believe resonate with the audience I have, but also what works with my fans. Like, not every wrestling fan is a Vinnie Vain fan. I have a certain kind of fan and I know what works, what my target audiences are. So I produce content that suits their needs.
Do you think that's the thing you're doing better than anybody else on the scene, sort of creating your content, but then also analyzing how it's working as well?
Of course, if you ask me, hands down, as an indie performer, not someone who works for a WWE or a New Japan or a TNA that have a whole marketing team behind them where they're told what to post and when to post it, and the marketing's done for them. Like they just got to go in the ring and perform. I can safely say, hands down, I am probably one of the best put together from a marketing standpoint. I've got my websites in check, my socials in check, my personas in check. What I'm doing on those platforms is all in check digitally. Everything is on point. Where I believe I'm lacking as a performer is what I can do. Not necessarily what I'm lacking. Like it's just like I look at wrestling as an overall piece. I look at wrestling and I rate wrestlers based on character, physical body. What do they look like? What's their promo skill? What's their in-ring skill? What's their marketability? And by marketability, I mean based on, can this person sell tickets? Can this person be interesting? And all those other factors come into that, but including what do they do for themselves? Do they do, socials? Even interviews like this, are they doing the interviews? Is there an interest in them? Are they going the extra mile? Are they doing the media that's associated with shows to sell tickets? That's how I rank wrestlers, and I give an overall ranking in my head. Whereas most people these days, and this is even wrestlers just look at wrestlers and be like, oh, what can he do in the ring? Oh, is his footwork good? Oh, did he roll right? Did he bump right? Like, yes, that is important, but there's so much more to it because you're selling entertainment. Like wrestling and in-ring ability is just one part of the bigger picture. Like, who cares if you're technically the greatest wrestler on the planet, but your body looks like a bag of shit, or you can't cut a promo, or you're not marketable, you're plain Jane. Like, it's not going to make money. You need to be strong or competent in all those areas I mentioned, in my opinion, to be a solid performer. I think I am, when you look at me overall, in all areas, and if you were to grade me overall, I probably have a higher overall score than most. I just feel that in Australian wrestling, and I've said this before, it's fine. It's a business. There are a lot of politics involved with pro wrestling, whereas if you want to work here, you've got to go do this and you've got to go do that. And, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm a 35-year-old male, with a solid career outside of wrestling, a family. I just won't commit what is required by those companies because I believe my time is worth more, and I back myself as a performer already. I know what I bring to the table. I'm not going to go and, just do things to be seen and appease someone who is the decision maker there to get on their show. At the end of the day, mate, I've won multiple championships across multiple feds, and very good feds, some of these. I've wrestled a ton of international talent. That tells me, as a performer, multiple promoters and federations have have not taken a gamble, but they've put me in those positions because they know I can deliver. They know I am good enough to be in those positions. It's one thing if it was you're a one-trick pony for one fed, but I've done this across multiple feds. I've wrestled internationals across multiple feds. I've won championships across multiple feds. That's a lot of people putting a lot of faith in me. So it doesn't bother me if someone in some fed doesn't want to book me, because that's fine. To me, it's just politics. Like, I know what I bring to the table, and I'm the first one to call out my weaknesses. I am. So, at the end of the day, I'm content, man. Like, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got. And I think for someone who's had to split his time between a full-blown marketing career and pro wrestling, I think I've done rather well for myself.
And that sort of makes me want to pick your brain a little bit in terms of, personally, I believe there's a bit of an over-reliance in Australian wrestling on social media and basic posters to market the shows. Do you think there could be more done to improve the reach of Australian wrestling?
Absolutely. I will give you a scenario, okay? So follow along with me, right? Wrestling, okay, is the product. Yeah, like that's what essentially we're selling, by extension, entertainment. Yeah. Now, what else happens at these shows? You've got to think, what can you do at these shows to make the people that are there want to leave and talk about it? And what I mean by talk about it is word of mouth, take photos, put it on social media, tag the promotions, because once they start to see all these additional things, this is what we call the augmented product. Once they start to see the augmented product, people are like, hey, that sounds good. I want to be a part of that. And then they will then go and give it a whirl, and then they'll do the same thing. And the process repeats and repeats and repeats. There's a lot of different things we can do then besides social media. Like, and posters. Like, the sad thing is, right, and I'm not ripping, like, some people do it very well, some people don't, but I've said this story numerous times before. I've been on posters where I've tried to get friends and family to come, and they've said to me, yo, Vinny, you seriously want me to come to this show where it looks like I can belt every single person on the poster? Now, that's a bigger problem in Australian wrestling, because unfortunately, a lot of people don't look like wrestlers. Like, we've opened the gates to wrestling's for everyone, and I'm not going to have that debate with you, but we've lost that certain demeanor with wrestlers where they look larger than life. Now, I'm not saying it's about size, but we have people in wrestling now, because it is open, that, like I said, there's so much emphasis on in ring that they forget to take care of their body. They forget to train, or they forget to watch nutrition. Like, I've trained with people and wrestled people where they've gone out and done, put their body through hell in a match or in training, but then they've gone and loaded up on McDonald's straight after. And then it's like, I mean, it's not just a one-off. Like, this is how they live their life. Like, if you're not going to fuel your body and take care of it, it's not going to help you overall. Like, why would people want to pay to see something that doesn't look like it's, and like wrestling, you got, what's the entertainment value? What's the draw card? If we're not looking, when I say larger than life, I'm not talking about physical size, but there's got to be a point of difference between the performers and the people in the front row. So that's that's number one. So your roster, if we're going to help it get bigger and better, the roster needs to look like wrestlers. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you, or who you're promoting at least, and putting on these posters, need to actually attract attention, to be like, hey, what's that? I want to see more and learn more. Obviously, social media can work, but it has to be done right. You need to run ads to expand that audience. And it's not a matter of hitting boost and, sending them off. You need an expert like me, so to speak, that knows what to target, what ad objective to buy for. So you're spending money and reaching people that the message is actually going to resonate with. It's not as simple as putting up a post on your Facebook page and, yeah, that should be it. No, Facebook are not going to show your creative to people unless it is engaged with organically. The way around that is to spend money with them. So like you said, before you used to take an ad out in a newspaper, no, now you take an ad out on Facebook, but you have to know how to set it up properly to reach that audience and buy the right objective. But then, mate, there's a ton of other things you can do, man. Like, partnerships, partner with brands, partner with X, Y, and Z, get that exposure. But at the end of the day, man, your biggest assets are always your performers. Okay, because your performers know people, and your performers, like in some cases with some feds, I know a lot of performers, they hang in the same circle as each other. But if you're working with people, like if you've got performers that have lives outside of wrestling, and like that's not a rib. I'm just saying, like, if you have people who are involved in different sports and different activities and different certain things in life, you're going to expand your reach. So I know, like, a lot of wrestlers can be very cliquey and, oh, we're all one family and we do everything together. That's great. If you want to help build the product, go outside that box and, because you'll meet people. And like, even in my line of work, I've tried to keep my wrestling life and my marketing life separate. Reasons that I'll keep to myself. But if they do catch on and they're like, oh, I saw something of you on the internet. Is that you? Yeah, that's me. I'm not going to hide it or deny it. But then that's where it's created a new opportunity. And the first thing is, tell me about it. Oh my God, I'd love to come to a show. Great. There's more money in the door. Like, that's how we grow, expand your horizons.
Suddenly you find out someone that you didn't know was a wrestling fan is a wrestling fan. You're like, oh, okay, cool.
But it's not even about being a wrestling fan. There are so many people I've met over the years through various activities outside of wrestling. Like, so work is one thing, yes. But, through activities with my kids or engaging in a different sport. I'm an avid racing fan. So I go to a lot of things to do with racing and Formula One and stuff like that. And you meet people, and then when they find out, oh, wrestling like The Rock, like Stone Cold. Yes, exactly like that. Man, I'd love to see that. Like, I'd love to see you perform. And then they come in and then they see everyone else And like, if you're on a good show with great performers and, you know, the show is quality, then great. Oh, this was amazing, man. I'm going to tell my friends. And so many times this has happened where they've gone back and told their friends, or they've taken a photo with me or the ring, and then it's gone on their Facebook and their friends have seen it. And the next time they bring two more people with them, and we're making money. You know, we're expanding that reach. We're breaking down the walls. We're breaking into mainstream. Pro wrestling here, the successful companies, I believe, they've got that niche of avid pro wrestling fans. But with that said as well, they can draw a crowd of 300-400. But I worked the show 2 weeks ago for Australian Wrestling Entertainment.
So we're back from a little technical hiccup. Before the tech issues, we were chatting about the power of the word of mouth to expand the reach of wrestling beyond sort of the hardcore wrestling niche. And you were about to tell us about working for AWE recently.
Yeah, what I was getting at was essentially, you look at some of the shows across the country, there are some brands that have a very niche core pro wrestling fan base, and they're doing, you know, 4, maybe 500 plus pay-per-view buys. And then I was working for a company 2 weeks ago called AWE, and they did at their venue, they had sold out, which was I believe the capacity of the venue was 400 and above 450, and they turned away, I was told, another 20 or 30 people that came up on the door, and they had it on Fight TV as well. But when I look at the crowd on that show, they're casual fans. They're, you know, like you know, a mixture between some core pro wrestling fans that you see across a variety of shows, some kids, you know, with their little WWE t-shirts, and then fans that are just, I've never seen before in my entire life, that you can tell are just general punters that live in the local area where the show was held, and they wanted to come and check out, you know, what the event was based on the promoting of the club, a mixture of that, the promoting of the company. So it's good. My point is with all this is, there's obviously with pro wrestling, your core pro wrestling fans are a limited market. They're going to come back constantly, which is a great thing. Keep doing that. But there's a ton more money to be made in the mass market with the general casual fans, because they will come and go and bring kids, but that pool is so much wider. So we've obviously marketed to the pro wrestling fans here. They know what's on. They know the shows. They know the players. They'll come back. The key now is to take that and target the general population to get them interested in pro wrestling. And again, with that comes a change in the product, because core pro wrestling fans are going to want to see, you know, technicalities and moves and all this stuff. But the core pro wrestling fans, like, the casual pro wrestling fans, they want to be entertained. They want to see character. They want to see a story. They want to be engaged for that 2 hours, and they're going to go home and they're going to forget about it until the show rolls around in town in the next 3 to 6 months. So it's a bit of a divide where, yes, we can expand it and reach it, but if your company is going to be successful, in my opinion, they need a combination of both. You need to cater to that core pro wrestling market that love everything to do with wrestling and going to be there at every event. But then you need to also cater to the general population and give them something that's going to warrant them to want to buy a ticket and possibly come back, not to every show, but, you know, more frequently than they would. So yeah.
Yeah, especially these days where the cost of everything has just gone right through the roof. I think, yeah, having that hardcore base to give you that, this is our floor that we're going to make every time, but then you've got to reach out and get those other people. And I just feel like we could probably do more in terms of maybe like reach out to sort of radio interviews and like places like Time Out and things like that. I feel like there needs to be a bit more of that sort of outreach marketing.
100%. The problem with radio interviews and whatnot is they're going to want advertising dollars. They're going to want a media investment because, you know, why should we advertise you? And rightfully so. You know, they want to be paid for their audience, to reach their audience. But I think this comes down to funding. A lot of pro wrestling companies, especially some that I've worked for, the funds are limited. You need to be able to fund it. Whether that means getting sponsors or investors on board. If you do get that, you'd have a higher grade of product. I was working for a company earlier this year called EWA, Elite Wrestling Australia, and they were funded by a company called Newcoin, which was really cool. And you could tell the difference between them and some of the other companies that I was working for, where These guys had better venues, better staging, better lighting, better production, better quality vignettes, a full-on camera crew to film, what was needed for certain storylines. And the product at the end, what they were producing, the final product was amazing. They had a different strategy with how they approached the market, which I'm not going to get into here, but they tried something different and it was working for what it was. Where it's at now, I'm a little unsure. They've gone on hiatus for a bit. I'm not too sure of the reasons why, but you need that investment. And that market again was a good combination of when I would go to the ring, I would see people in the crowd that I had seen at every wrestling show, no matter whether I was working for EWA, FWA, IWA. You see those guys. But then I saw so many new faces that I'd never seen before. And then being a heel, I don't necessarily go and do autographs and whatnot. I try to heel it up. But even when I was leaving the arena, I had to go through the arena to get to my car. Long story. And I was, oh, can I please get a photo? Can I get a photo? Sure, but people I've never ever seen before. And a lot of them, which is great. So it's like, wow, we're doing something really cool here. Like, if they want a photo, obviously they were happy with the product, they're going to want to come back. So it's doing great things. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's great for the business, but it's also great for your creativity too, because you're not just catering to the same people doing the same thing over and over again.
100%. And that's a beautiful thing with being a heel is sometimes what works with one audience doesn't necessarily work with the other, which means I have to work harder or differently to get that reaction I need and establish myself as the heel in that given match or story. So it's a challenge, but I love it and I welcome it. It's one of the beautiful things about being a performer.
Alrighty. So finally, where is the best place for people to support you and track your creative journey moving forward?
Look, I prefer Instagram just because I'm on it a lot more. So it's Vinnie_Vain, VINNIE_Vain, VAIN. But obviously you can find me on Facebook, Vinnie Vain Pro Wrestler. Twitter's the same handle. And from those, you can go through my link tree and look at my website and catch some matches and, different interviews and whatever you want to see. My records, you can look at all that jazz. So yeah, please reach out. I love talking to fans. I love engaging with fans, whether they want to curse me out or give me praise, it's fine. I welcome it all. But it's been great. So yeah, thank you, mate. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for taking the time and good luck with everything. We'll catch you around healing it up somewhere.
You too, man. Absolutely. I'll see you soon.